Hello and welcome to this Q&A on defining the skill sets that you need to be fighting fit for 2025. I hope you enjoyed the presentation you just saw the previous session. I have four distinguished guests I'd like to introduce. I have Adi Gaskell, I have Leslie Anderson, Jeff Martin and Satnam Sagoo. Different organisations, very different areas of expertise. So if you'd like to do quick introductions, Adi, I'll just go around my screen top left.
Yes, I'm a consultant and a journalist about innovation, and I work primarily with startups, looking at human capital and how they can get the skills and the resources they need to grow their businesses.
Well, thank you. Leslie.
Hi, I've been in corporate banking for 27 years plus. I'm in technology now, running our employee experience for enterprise technology, basically making sure that the capabilities that we need for our employees to do their jobs and actually work from anywhere. So that's been our strategy for a number of years, that they have the capability, the learning, and also taking a look at people's digital journeys and helping them upskill more appropriately so that our employees understand and don't fear technology in the same way. We often say that it's not people against technology, it's people in technology against problems, and we're trying to create an environment that supports that.
Cool, thank you. And Jeff?
Yep, hi, I'm Jeff Martin. I'm from Wells Fargo, part of a workplace experience team. It's in our corporate real estate group, so my background is in workplace design, supporting people in the office essentially, but a lot of what I do obviously is about people, and so looking at what people need to do their jobs and helping to enable them to not only use the technology tools place, but also be able to make the best of it and really understand how to make their jobs better.
Good, thank you. And Satnam?
Hi, I'm Satnam Sagoo. I am the Director of Learning and Organisation Development for the British Red Cross, and I also lead the learning leaders for the Federation, which is our global kind of learning organisation for the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement. My role sort of covers everything from your induction training all the way through organisational design and strategy, as well as well-being. So it's an array, and we work with multi-generations of people, volunteers and staff. So that's kind of in a nutshell.
Thank you. So let's kick off the conversation on digital agility and what we did pre-COVID, because obviously that, as I said in the session, that's the elephant in the room. Before all this nonsense happened, we were all sitting with sort of white backgrounds and things behind us for the bookcase that was in the previous session. Surely we were just preparing for the millennials, and it was all going to be a young workforce. Adi, surely this was just going to be a young person's game going forward for digital agility.
You know, it's weird because I feel in a way that things haven't changed too much, because if you go back 6 months to a year, we were talking about the fourth industrial revolution and how that was going to transform the world, and we needed to be agile, we needed to be resilient, adaptive, grit, a growth mindset. All of these kind of capabilities were what we were looking for in employees and in organizations more generally. And I think this is it on steroids, isn't it, really? We're changing at the kind of pace that we were envisaging over a long time, period of time in a very short period of time now. So those skills are even more important now as we're trying to adapt to the kind of changes that we perhaps had never envisaged before.
Yeah, and I guess from a corporate legacy point of view, a question for Leslie and Jeff, maybe in the banking and finance side, corporately, how long did it typically take in a large corporate to make change from a workforce perspective? What was the change cycle, and how did people go through it? Surely you needed the expertise and the people who were longer in the business, who knew how to do things to make that change effective, pre-COVID.
I would, the challenge for organizations like mine and Jeff, they're massive, right? So change management rarely happens across the entire organization at the same time, other than when we're forced to. So, as unfortunate and devastating as COVID-19 has been, it has forced the entire organization to align to a different work experience and a different work environment overnight. And to Adi's point, it's allowed us to accelerate some of our strategies that we've been planning for a long time, but just didn't have the right catalyst to galvanize everyone in the same way. So it took years for us to iterate throughout the entire organization. In the last 60 days, we've done what we couldn't have done in 6 to 9 months across the enterprise.
Yeah, I agree. It's been amazing how well right before I think there's other organizations like this. Right before COVID happened, we were focused on we want people to collaborate, want people to be together face to face, which I think is still a good goal to have. But I'm hoping what we get out of this is we get some balance. And so when you look at balance, it's also looking across generations. If we can find and look at the different generations that we have in our workplace, regardless of where we're working from, we can take advantage of the people that are experienced. We can bring up the people that are inexperienced but energetic. And this is a little challenging time though, because now we got to find ways to do that where we can't see each other, or we can't be with each other. But in the reality of it, I know, at least from my perspective, I'm never going to be able to sit with everybody that I work with, because we're such a large organization. We're so distributed, and I think we're like most other organizations. So I think this, and back to the point of putting together things so quickly. It's amazing. We brought hundreds of thousands of people are working from home, and giving them the resources and the tools that they need as quickly as we did was amazing, and having it right there, make it easy for people, has been amazing. Yeah.
And Satnam, we were chatting before we just came on the session here. Do you want to just discuss was it 20,000 people?
Yeah. So the British Red Cross is a national humanitarian organisation, and we are a national society across the globe, pretty much across the world. We're in 194 countries now as a Red Cross or a Red Crescent. And as you can imagine, the demand for our services, as well as the amount of support from the communities to want to help. So overnight, our volunteering kind of offer, or people joining volunteering, has gone up by around 120,000. So we've got an additional 120,000 into the organisation. And really, our digital strategy pre-COVID and pre that was for around about 66,000 people, of which 40,000 were light touch. And if I can give you an idea of what we were working with pre-COVID, was our youngest volunteer is 15, our oldest kind of volunteer is 100, but a kind of average age we work at 85. So you can imagine that we are a multi-generational, multi-skill set, multi-digital averse in some areas. And my biggest challenge was for us to take our kind of wider learning and development and organizational development offer digitally, because we still run in that traditional way. We still train 20 people in a room, 3 days, off you go, and you deliver. And we don't want to move away from that, because there is great value of that coming together. And some bits of training you just can't do virtually. But there was a lot of pushback from the various groups that we work with in the organisation about the digital upskilling we would need to ensure before we move to a much more stronger blended offer. And then came COVID, and many of the people who are in vulnerable age groups, they couldn't leave the house. So obviously our 70+ tutors were housebound. They were like, give me something to do. My grandchild has already taught me how to use Zoom. So we would like to thank all the grandchildren out there and the children who've done an amazing job of upskilling their grandparents on iPads, Zoom sessions, because most of that digital work has been done for us. So I can't thank the population enough. And we've got a cohort of about 40 strong tutors who are well, but have got are self-isolating due to an age group. And they are running sessions for us, who are volunteers. They are training sessions for us on a daily basis. And our recent one, they had 48 in their cohort for a 4-hour training session, and they ran that all by themselves. So we can't, we can't imagine what would have taken us. We had a 5-year strategy planned to make that, but COVID has brought that. And also, I think it's actually taken away the hesitation people had originally. I think where we are struggling for us, it's really the capacity of our mobile devices, data, and everything else. That's kind of been the struggle, whereas the upskilling has almost happened organically in the last few weeks.
Good, and that segue gets me perfectly onto the next bit I wanted to discuss, which was pre-COVID and now during COVID, because we're not quite post-COVID yet. Was there and is there a foundational set of capabilities, digital capabilities, that all of you thought we needed, skill sets that have now rapidly either accelerated or changed? You talk about my 5-year-old showed me something on not a bad parenting syndrome here, but showed me how to do something on YouTube that I didn't know you could do. So from that perspective, is there a foundational set of capabilities that we would have expected and a bit more of a slower ramp up pre-COVID and now during COVID that we're now seeing? So how do people get online? So for instance, your volunteers, what was the minimum set that you need?
So we had, obviously we are an organisation that has a legacy. This year we're turning 150 in the British Red Cross. So we've had lots of people with us for a very long time. Some of our volunteers have been with us for over 40 years. And they've always mentioned that there is a dual system. So they log in slightly differently to a staff member. And part of our digital strategy was, how do we make it a single point outside of dual authentication? I'm sure many of you have the same issues. But if you're somebody who volunteers maybe twice a month, do you need all the complicated layers that an organizational structure needs? And those were the biggest hurdle for us, was I must admit, dual authentication and password resetting. It seems like a long time ago when we had that conversation, and part of year one for us was to look at a smoother transition. And what we've done is launch systems very quickly. So we launched an IT system called Assemble for our volunteers almost in 3 weeks, and that was radical for us because we hadn't had the business case sign off. And as many of you on this call will know, that's those case sign-offs are very, very important and take a long time. And so we were able to get that in very quickly. We did a lot of telephone support early on. But again, the time scale of what we had put down as year one and then year two upskilling has pretty much been done in the last couple of weeks. And we have not, touch wood, haven't hit many hurdles with people saying that they don't want to be involved. I think in a way, the connection, we have a very strong theme of staying connected. That's really helped, and people who are very keen to support have just been able to go, even use YouTube links even before we did anything. So
okay. And Jeff, what about you in terms of the skill set change you're seeing in your industry?
I think, the big thing is all of us getting used to communicating differently. And unfortunately, I've been working remotely for 10 years, but I learned early on that there is different skills that are required when you're distributed and when you're distant, especially when you're alone, right? And working with other people. And so one of the things I hope that we all take advantage of is looking for different ways to manage and trust and maybe give people a little bit more leeway, but be more goal-oriented. And I think those are the skills that I see out of all of this are the things that are going to come to the front. And the longer we do this, right, the more evolved you become, right? In the beginning, we're trying to get connected, right?
Yeah,
month one, we're kind of getting the hang of it. And now we're into month two. And I think now we're going to see fatigue on people's parts of being, not near people for such a long time. And I think that's going to create the evolution of more of the skill set of, manager making sure they can hear in their employee's voice that something's wrong, address it. Look at ways to continue to motivate people. help give people what they need to do their job. So, I mean, I personally see this opportunity as an opportunity to help us be better managers, be better employees, be more productive, understand how we're feeling, right? Because the other thing I learned is I understood after a while that my motivation, when I have dips in motivation, it's not because I'm working remotely, it's because I'm actually doing the same activity day in, day out. Which when I was in an office, it was the same way. I would get demotivated when I'm going to a desk every day and doing the same thing. So, I'm hoping that a lot of people start to realize that and start seeing that and then help other people get there. Because I think that's one of the things that I noticed just being remote is that those skills of kind of reinventing things and finding new ways to do things, which I think has been great. You've been seeing that all over the place, right? From talk shows and all of that. We're finding ways to do our jobs. We're finding ways to be creative and get ourselves out there.
So let me just bring Adi in here a sec, because the question just popped in that actually ties into something you just said. So from a connectivity point of view and from being able to do your job, you obviously need remote working, which means always on IT. So you've got cloud-based tools, you've got remote working collaboration. So Adi, the question is, do you see a rise in the changing contract models towards freelance and fixed term contracts? And if so, what does it mean for effective onboarding and offboarding from a skill set point of view?
I would say certainly a lot of freelancers that I know are panicking quite a lot.
Okay.
Because travel is a big part of the job, and obviously travel is something that's not happening right now. We also don't have contracts, so we don't necessarily have the security and so on that salaried employees perhaps enjoy. And so it can be a quite uncertain environment, especially in terms of getting access to the government resources as well. So certainly the freelancers that I know are having a bit of a tough time at the moment. But in terms of going forward, yeah, it certainly makes sense to have a more contingent workforce that you can grow or shrink as required, because things are very uncertain, and it makes perfect sense to be able to grow and shrink your workforce accordingly. Obviously, it does bring certain challenges in terms of onboard people correctly, making sure they're familiar with your processes, with their new teammates, and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's certainly a challenge, and obviously things like cybersecurity are a big issue at the moment, because that's booming, because we're sending all of these people home to work on their own devices using a plethora of different tools, many of which they're not familiar with. And Leslie, like you were saying, Zoom has had a whole bunch of issues, so the various employers are forbidding its use.
I think we're losing you on a
lot of new things, using a lot of new tools. We need to be considerate of that.
Yeah, and I think just on some of the topics, Will Harris talked earlier about automation. I can see automation, cloud, cybersecurity. These will come to the forefront, where, as Jeff said, the motivation not comes from being stuck at home, but it's doing the same kind of thing. Automatable processes allow you to have the hybrid technology human interface that allows you to do things more productivity. Leslie, just from an e-learning and from an engagement point of view, obviously with the shock of COVID, how are the panel seeing employees themselves recognize gaps in skill sets, and what is the demand that they are coming to the business to ask for? As Adi was saying, the skill sets have changed, and people are having the self-reflective moment, but how are you all seeing changes within your organization's proactive requests? And then we'll come on to the future in a second.
So some of it's prompted. I think people are still trying to figure out what they need, what skills they need to navigate the right now and then the long term. And we've got a learning arm that really focuses on how do we improve the digital fluency of all of our employees. When COVID first hit, not understanding We knew that our 45,000 plus employees spanned the gamut in terms of where they were from a learning perspective, but we wanted to figure out where do we kind of lean in on some spaces. And so we have been conducting Ask Me Anything sessions about, navigating the technology that you have and that you need to do your job, but also, what are some of the areas about technology and banking in particular that you want to learn more about. So we're putting together, we had put together kind of a technology state of the nation to help people understand what's going on in the world of technology as it relates to banking, so that people are less fearful of what's to come, introducing them to robotics and that sort of thing. But also so that it's a push and pull strategy that we're employing, where we're pushing some really critical information out to make sure that folks are continuing to invest in themselves, especially while working from home. We all know that an 8-hour day in the office doesn't take 8 hours when you're working at home. And so there is more time for personal investment. But we're also pulling. So we're saying, ask us what tell us what you need, tell us where your gaps are. And we're starting to see, I think Jeff made a great point. This is, while we need some minimal, some level setting in terms of the technology capabilities that you have, this is a people problem, especially for financial services or service industries. We're still dealing with a population where you've got millennials that are used to working from home, and I've got one in my team who never came into the office. So he's like, wow, now I'm not the oddball. But you also have, more senior individuals who tend to be our highest grossing salespeople because of their tenure in the industry, and as well as they're managing people that they are just not used to having a video call from 8 in the morning to sometimes 5 at night. And how do you then sell to our customers when they're used to being in person and shaking hands and going golfing and having dinner? So helping them to think through, how to not just survive in this environment, because I think we're still in you talked about, we're not post-COVID yet. So people are still trying to figure out what survival looks like. But in a very short period of time, we got to learn how to thrive. We've got to actually be better than we were pre-COVID in this post-COVID environment. And I think it's a lot of work that's an investment that's going to have to go into our people around upskilling for us to get there.
And that's a great segue into we've got sort of 4 and a bit minutes left. So to ask each of the panel, post-COVID, so let's assume we're a few months down the line, we have more than a few months, we have our vaccine, we're all able to integrate and go back to the new normal. What does that look like for each of you? And what's, from a digital strategy perspective for people, what is the first thing you think we should be doing? I'll go to Jeff first.
I kind of go back to it's really getting better at not being near each other, right? And working better distributed and leveraging technology. So what I see, and obviously this is gonna, it's gonna evolve. It's gonna take a long time before, we're all in an office. But then also I think there's gonna be a number of us that are gonna say, hey, do I really need to be there all the time? And so I hope we take advantage of that. What that means though is we need to make sure that we're leveraging technology and everybody knows the technology. And we may actually have a leg up when people start going back to the office, because before that, everybody got thrown into the Zoom and bringing people in together and video. I'm hoping that translates into working with distributed teams. Real quick, when I transitioned from working in an office to working from home full time, I started using video with my team. And one of the great things about it was I had a team in Virginia when I lived there at the time. So we all would sit together in a conference room. Everybody else would be on a conference call. And then when I moved away, I brought everybody together. So I had people from New York, a person working from home in Alabama. We were on video. We were able to see each other. And so that transformed and connected our group differently than it did before when we had a bunch of people on conference call. So I hope that what we, as far as we're all upskilling right now, right? And so I'm hoping that we translate that into when we go back to the office and are able to have a better experience for everybody.
And Adi, 60 seconds from you.
I think post-COVID for me will be really long hair.
Yes.
But, yeah, I mean the norms that we had have gone. So I think we've just got to be adaptable and understanding that we're all making this up as we go along, and we are going to make mistakes. So be forgiving of each other.
Cool. And Leslie?
Post-COVID, really, like, we are going to have to be more agile and connected, from innovation to security testing, our supplier management, our employee engagement, and all of that work is going to have to be perfected. But I still go back to, it's a people problem. And so we need to get people aligned with what it means to work from home. Our EQs that muscle has to actually grow exponentially in a really fast pace, because we've got to be able to connect with people differently than we have in the past, in order to not just keep our existing employees engaged and feeling good about this work, but also attracting the best and the brightest. We have to think about what this organization needs to look like in order to, again, thrive in this post-COVID environment, and prepare us to really compete at a much different and a much better level globally than we have in the past.
And Satnam, just to close off.
I think for us, it's the digital work will continue and the upskilling will continue. But one of the key things about post-COVID for us is the actual well-being care package that we're putting for returning people, and people who've been furloughed, who may not have been working, who are now coming back into the system. So we're already putting that strategy together, and much of that is, so we're looking at upskilling or getting in touch through support lines and through coaching offers. So we've got lots of coaching offers set up for June that people can start tapping into. So it's much more of a gentle reintroduction into the workforce or into the work that we're doing, also recognising that there may be a gap where local communities have come together, and then that might need to be handed over to us as a humanitarian sector. So for us, what Leslie has said is very true. We need to combine the kind of digital with the human factor, and we need to show that humanity is live across the sector.
Yeah. And that's, I suppose, the perfect way just to finish my, thank you for all your comments. I think for me, the technology of getting the right technology in place to deliver is only one part. You need the human element on top to actually deliver the right skill set and make sure business thrives. But I'd like to thank the panel, and if you want to, please go and join the Startup Challenge now. The session should be open. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.